try not to start from the scratch, and we will also consider the results of the previous assessment. I'm talking about the Central Asia mostly. There was an interesting research done for Central Asia with the different partners on the economics of land degradation. So it actually looked at the most important drivers of the land degradation, and the land degradation in Central Asia is one of the reasons of aggravated sand and dust storm, the aggravation of the sources of the sand and dust storms. So therefore, it is really important to see then, to have the deeper analysis. What are the drivers, what is aggravating the sand and dust storm, and to see what would be the appropriate mitigation measures for that. Yes, I agree.
Great, thanks for the comments. Let's move on with our final two speakers for this session. Bala Gukut from Nigeria. He's going to talk to us about sand dust storms action in Nigeria.
Okay. Thank you. I think I'll go there. Thank you for giving Nigeria the opportunity to be in this session of the Sand and Dust Storm Coalition. Nigeria is an impact country for now because of the location. Nigeria is in the southern part of the Sahara, which we know is the largest emission, or has the largest emission of dust. That's the Sahara. Records in 2012 shows that the Sahara emission is 69% of the global emissions. Like I said, Nigeria is not a source country for now, but an impact. But the impact is felt all over the country and more intense in the northern part, which is in close proximity to the southern part of the Sahara. In fact, the source of the sand and dust storm of Nigeria is from the Chad or the Bodele Depression, and also the southern eastern region of the Sahara around Mali, Mauritania, and Algeria. So the dust from the Sahara is normally felt in Nigeria during the dry season from November to February. That's the dry season when the west easterly trade wind moves down. There's a possibility of Nigeria being a source country if nothing is being done with the rate of degradation, anthropogenic activities. So what we are hoping that with what we are going to do, what we have started doing in Nigeria with the UNCCD, we may be able to get some reprieve. Although I'm surprised that Chad, Niger, and other countries that are within the source zone, source area are not here. Nigeria acting alone may not help issues, may just reduce the impact. But the real impact, mitigation or whatsoever should be as a collaboration with the countries in the northern part of Nigeria that are the source of the sun and dust storm. So when the wind comes during the dry season, it's known as the harmattan, and it comes with greater consequences on the weather as the condition becomes colder, and it also affects anthropogenic activities, like even transportation, because sometimes it's so intense that flights are canceled in the northern part of the country. And also it affects animals. Well, we all know the effects of sun and dawn storm. What is Nigeria doing? Yes, in collaboration with the UNCCD, or the UNCCD is helping us to now develop a project, a pilot project. And in preparation to that, last year, 2018, our country delegation visited Iran to look at what is happening as far as sun and dust storm is concerned. And we are taking it from there. We've learned some lessons there. And with what we are doing, what we intend to do is, one, to test the global SDS source map for enhancing our accuracy and resolution at national levels. We want to integrate our national data set with field survey. Actually, there are data that have been taken by our agencies, but they are aggregated data that is not, that of sun and dust storm is not segregated. So one of the things we want to do is that we approach those organizations, we work together to see that data is desegregated. So and those data, we use a survey to validate them. Then we are going to carry out risk assessment and vulnerability assessment. There will be a national SDS management plan. And we want to enhance the capacity and resilience at the institutional and affected local level, because it's the local community, the local poor that are mostly affected. So what we intend to do, what Nigeria intends to do, is to enhance the capacity. And the objective of with the pilot project is assessment on the risk vulnerability, and the national SDS management plan, and then enhancing the capacity for SDS adaptation and resilience as institutional and affected local level. So it is hoped that we will approach the WMO says it's moving to Western Africa, and they are starting with they have started with Cote d'Ivoire, and we are hoping that the next port of call will be Nigeria, because we are developing our own risk management strategy. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. We are moving well along the lines of that session. And our final speaker for the session, then we are going to open the floor for more discussion. So I would encourage all of you to start thinking now about how we can contribute to this discussion, to have a healthy discussion among the panelists or among the speakers and the floor after our next speaker, who's going to be Ucheng Kang, who is going to be presenting about the SDS compendium. Please, Ucheng.
Thank you, Hisham. Good afternoon, everyone, again. I think it is my third time today to see you here. And my last presentation is going to be very short. And actually, I think you already seen the main contents of the compendium that was presented in our COP document. So I just cannot to say more than that, but just briefly introduce what this compendium is about. So at the last COP13, parties considered the UNCCD policy advocacy framework, and parties agreed to use it on a voluntary basis. And this policy advocacy framework contains three main action areas, like, for example, pre-impact governance and the post-impact crisis management and preparedness. This whole area is framed around the disaster risk reduction management principles. And in order to achieve the goal of the policy advocacy framework, we set out a priority action plan, action areas, which is monitoring, prediction, and early warning and preparedness, and impact mitigation, vulnerability, and resilience, and then the source mitigation. Of course, this is the 3 pillars, but we have another areas, for example, cross-cutting. So let's say we are saying 3 pillars, but plus cross areas also, cross-cutting areas also. So SDS compendium is intended to provide information guidance on assessing and addressing the risks posed by sand and dust storms. So as I mentioned earlier, the compendium topics deals with different areas of SDS management, for example, monitoring and early warning, and resilience preparedness, and source mitigation, and risk knowledge, and also source information. Of course, the source information is very important information because it fed into the other process of disaster management aspects of sand and dust storms. So this compendium is co-branded, collaborative a product that we had enjoyed with participation of 9 UN organizations, as you see, and we have also have enjoyed also contribution from and partnership with governments, China and South Korea. And this slide shows the target audience of the compendium. So actually, when we consider to address the sand and dust storm impact, we might need wide range engagement on cooperation between different sectors and different line ministries, sort of something like that. So as we already know that this is the sand and dust storm has multidimensional impact at the multilateral sort of. So we not just focus on specific areas, but we need really intense cooperation among government ministry itself, also the level of different actors, like from the central government to the local communities, and also political decision-making communities, and also between scientific communities. So these kind of interactions and the cooperation is not just one way or one bound direction, but it should go and back, and they need sort of reiterative process to enhance the implementation of the policy, and also enhance the knowledge of around the sand and dust storms, and so that the new knowledge could input the decision-making processes. So that's why, and how this compendium would work for each sectors, each players, each partners in the SDS management community. So basically, the compendium contains 12 topics. So I'm not going to discuss each topics here, but it contains the nature of SDS. It gives some sort of overview of what is this SDS per se. And there is a topic on the SDS from a perspective of a disaster management. And then we have a topic on assessing the risk. And then we propose the SDS risk assessment framework. And the next topic is the economic impact assessment framework, which is tested in Kuwait 2 years ago. And you also include a GIS-based SDS vulnerability mapping framework that is based for the Sanjay's work you have heard a while ago. And we also have SDS source mapping. According to this methodology, we developed a global source map. So you show in the morning session what the processes are, what the details, techniques are, and the results of those activities. And we also have the topic on SDS modeling and forecasting. This is mostly interested by the meteorological group specialists, but this is also important information for other activities in this compendium users. And then we have topic on SDS early warning. So let's say the forecasting and modeling is not just enough for the entire early warning processes, but this chapter specifically focused on how to disseminate the forecast information to the public, and then how to the end users be informed and then prepared to prevent further exposure to sand and dust storm risks. And then we have a chapter on the SDS and health. And we also have a chapter discussing about a SDS source management. I think this is a bit touched by the Ikrada and Nico's presentation. Through this, maybe you could consider developing a policy decision-making support tools, which will be a part of entire SDS toolbox. And then finally, you have a topic on SDS impact and response mitigation. This is more or less a post-risk management, also a preparedness. Otherwise, the measures are related to source management. So those are major elements of this compendium. A current status of a compendium is a drafted version of like almost 300 pages. So I think this could be a good material for you pick up at the beginning, and then you can use throughout in the development and implementation of any relevant SDS policy at national or even subnational, regional, sub-regional levels. So I like to show that some test resulted here. The first map is as you saw, is the global source-based map, and the second map is the example of the PALA study in Mongolia, and left down map showing the vulnerability assessment map done by UNCCD, and then the last map is another vulnerability mapping PAL project down in northern part of China. So this is about the SDS compendium. I thank you for your listening.
Thank you, Ucheng. Ucheng, can you join us here? Ucheng. So thank you so much for all the presenters. Now it's time for us to open the floor for discussion. Do we have any questions or any comments from the floor to any of the speakers? We had a wide range of presentations and topics. Can we have the mic there, please? The mic. Covering different regions, and it's quite fascinating to see the efforts are coming together in order to achieve like some of the goals of this coalition.
Hello. This session was quite informative, and thank you to all the speakers.
Can you raise your voice, please?
Yeah. This session was very informative, and I thank you all the speakers. My question may sound odd here, but out of curiosity, I'm still throwing the questions. Now, talking about deserts is one of the natural land cover of Earth, and it must have existed even before the human existence on the Earth. And the talking about dust storm and transportation of dust, it could be one of the natural phenomena. Where the dust from one continent is traveling to other continent, like the water travels within the oceans from one corner of the earth to another corner of the earth. So is it right to look at dust storm as a problem? It could be one of the natural phenomena which existed from the beginning.
Okay. Anybody would like to take a shot at this question? Jamal?
Yes, a quick comment on that. Of course, this is a natural phenomenon, and I think it also has some positive effect as well. But if you listen and watch the presentation of Uzbekistan and the area of the human desert, which was created after the drying of the Aral Sea, it's not a natural phenomenon. This is a human impact. And in fact, it has not only the dust, but it also has the toxic substances. So we also talk about the human impact on the sand and dust storm. And of course, this type of the transportation of the dust and salt should be, of course, mitigated.
Uche would like to comment as well. Jose?
Yes, this is because perhaps we, WMO, we are forecasting natural phenomena. So imagine you are a driver, you are a truck driver, and we can provide you in advance that the thunderstorm is coming, and you have time to stop your truck, going to have a good meal, and stay and cover the thunderstorm hits, and you could return to drive. So the natural phenomena are to be respected, but we need to protect against the effects, not against the phenomena, but against the effects. In my opinion, thank you.
Thank you. Please, go ahead.
In our case, it is taking very severe effect because this storm, it will cover the agricultural land, which is fertile land. And the sand is approaching the cities. So if you will not prevent this, it will affect definitely the livelihood of the million people in our area.
Yes, I fully agree with you that the sand and dust storm is part of a natural process, correct? But also, I mean, here what we are trying to do is that SDS has negative impact on human well-being. So that's, I think we aim to address. And one thing I also highlight too is that the distinction between natural sources and anthropogenic sources. So after all, I don't think we could deal with the natural sources, but at least we can do something on human, anthropogenic sources using sustainable land management, highlighted so many times today's discussion. So in that way, you could, reduce the impact of sand and dust storms.
Okay, thanks, Uching. We have another question here. The mic, please. Oh, okay, just 1 second, please. Okay, go ahead. Okay, you can go.
My question is very simple for the last speaker.
Can you speak up, please? We cannot hear you.
Yes. To the last speaker, having found out the economic framework and having found out the probability of the risk, then there is certainly, having found out the economic framework and the probability of the risk, and how do you, decide, how much to invest in risk-averse structures. For example, in infrastructure. While constructing an infrastructure, you know that there is that much of risk, and this is the probability. So risk and probability, and then you get an answer with the quantified answer. Then who decides and what is the institutional mechanism that we decide that to which extent the structure should be risk-free or risk-prone, how it is decided. In India, we find it very difficult to convince the economist or to convince the decision makers. They get perplexed because the complex situations, ecology is a very complex situation, and most of the ecological values have no quantification and no data to back up on also. But when it occurs, it is a devastation. So this is a situation which we are facing in India. So can you just enlighten me how you are dealing with such type of situations?
Thank you for your intuitive questions. Actually, frankly, I have no idea about that, but at least I could say something like this. Well, I mean, if you literally try to compare the cost of dust and how much you have to invest to prevent the occurrence of dust, I don't know, because nobody calculated at that level, nationwide level, assessment have done yet so far, I know. So, well, I completely, no, I mean, we could explore what options would be appropriate to address the multidimensional the impact of sand and dust. Of course, I mean there are some positive aspects of SDS, and also there are some negative activity, I mean impact also, but we don't know how much we could benefit from dust yet. Again, we don't know how much we lost from the dust impact. So then, well, after the have a kind of cumulated, I mean, the information accumulated, then we might have some more kind of insights how to see